On a related topic, we look around and we see that most of the people in Melbourne, most of the people that we interact with in Melbourne are what we would call muggles. They're really not interested in the fact that we have a very different point of view. Although a lot of the time, at least for myself, I don't really bring it out. I don't really strike up these kind of conversations or arguments with people because I know for the most part how they're going to go. Especially when I meet people, I just listen to the sorts of things that they say, and very often they'll tell me more than enough about their philosophical and political views very quickly. They'll reveal it because, of course, they don't ever feel the need to conceal it because they're not aware of it. But I would say, for the most part, people in Melbourne at least, although they are offended and antagonistic to the ideas of real liberty and self-knowledge, I'd say that at the very least you're not going to be terribly ostracized, and you're certainly not going to be at risk of your life for saying that you just don't accept what the mainstream says. You'll be branded a radical, people think you're weird, people want to argue with you at parties and things like that. But how do you think Melbourne rates or shapes up against other places in the world? From what you've heard, from what you've seen.
Okay, well, my impression will be based on media, internet media, so I haven't had the chance yet to live in the States, to live in England. But my impression is that we are particularly politically stupid here. I have the impression that there is more thinking about politics, more greater awareness of politics in the States, at least, than there is here. And the British people that I meet in Melbourne, and they are not a random sample of British people, because they are the ones that came to Melbourne. So it's a self-selecting sample. They also seem to be more knowledgeable on history than the average Australian, and more interested in politics than the average Australian. That's my impression.
It's good that you point out history, because when I first came to Australia, as you can hear from my accent, I wasn't born here. When I came to Australia, I was 15 years old. I'd finished year 9 overseas, and I started year 10. And what I quickly discovered is that I knew more about Australian history than anyone else in my class. Now, sure, I like to read. Sure, I like to teach myself plenty of stuff. I'm a compulsive autodidact. Yet, I think that if you get to year 10, if you get to the age of about 15, 16, and you don't even know how long ago the Australian Commonwealth was created, or when people arrived here, or what actually happened here, if you don't know names, don't know dates, don't know places, or anything like that, you have really no awareness of how this place came into being by the age of 15, 16, then your knowledge of the history is pretty woeful. Now, how could it be that, and this is common, this is something, of course I haven't surveyed on a grand scale, but I would say that most people have a very, very limited knowledge of local history, and even lesser knowledge of global history, of the events that really shaped the world. Why is it that history just doesn't get taught properly at schools?
See, the question that I have is, why do they seem to teach it better overseas? Because I guess I still normalise the Australian education system. I think of as woeful as my education was, my high school education. I went to the school, I think it would be in the lowest 10 or 20% in Victoria for academic achievement. The classes were just dysfunctional. Not much was learned in anything other than maths. I took my highest level maths class, specialist maths. It was called at the time, I don't know what it's called now. Specialist maths in year 12. I had to take that via correspondence. And history, I don't remember learning anything about anything in history classes. There was mention of some of the Mongol warlords. in year 9 or 10. I can't remember learning Australian history, so either it wasn't taught, which seems unlikely, or it was just not memorable to me.
Mm.
That's my experience. I'm not sure I can comment any more broadly than that.
Mm.
Again, my general impression of Australians is that they are not curious people.
Australians are not curious.
Well, what's your impression coming here?
I think
Having lived in a couple of other places.
I think there definitely is something to that. There is a distinct tendency towards the mean, towards the average in Australian culture. There's definitely a glorification of the working class man or working class woman. There is a very pronounced tall poppy syndrome here. It exists in England for sure, but it's very pronounced in Australia. And it's always baffled me how people cannot be curious. Because I'm curious all the time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm interested in absolutely everything under the sun. Of course, no one is. But I would say that, generally speaking, if I see that that something requires some talent or skill, or that is the product of people who have something to contribute, I will find it interesting, or at least I'll find something interesting within it. But I, like you, have encountered a lot of people through my life that just don't seem to be interested in anything. You ask someone, so what do you like to do outside of work? Or, what are your hobbies? Oh, I just like to watch TV.
Yeah.
Or I just like to hang out with my mates. I like to drink. I like to go to nightclubs. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to me, although this is the status quo, I can't believe that this is natural.
Yeah.
I think that by the time we get out of school, a lot of us have the curiosity beaten out of us.
Yep.
Now, these days it's not literally beaten out of us because there's no corporal punishment in schools. But I think there's
something else that's just
something
as effective.
that's just as effective. That's right. And I can't quite put my finger on it. But I think that if people got a better education, and I don't mean by that we need to invest more money in schools, because schools already get plenty of money, and we keep on investing more money in schools and they keep on getting worse. But if people actually had a better education, in whatever form that may take, the result of it would be that they would be more curious and knowledgeable about the world. In fact, I would say that the mark of a good education is that you be curious about the world. Because if you have knowledge, if you learn, if you have a certain measure of wisdom, then you know that the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. And what that should inspire is a desire to keep on learning, to keep on finding out new things. Yet, in a lot of people that I've met, the more they realize they don't know something, the less inclined they are to go and find out something about it.
Well, I see it in some people that you could almost hear a door slamming when you bring up any interesting topic. Not only are they not curious, but they are resistant to the topic. Try to think of an example. Well, an example recently may be I prepare some fermented drinks. There's one in particular by the name of kefir, water kefir specifically. If I'm seen drinking it at my desk at work, many people will ask, "What the hell is that?" But nobody actually cares or wants to know. So I've become used to just giving a short answer and waiting for a follow-up question. Invariably, the follow-up question is,
why do you want to drink?
You get the sense that they didn't actually want to know. They're not really interested. I, on the other hand, am fascinated by these things. Anything that's different, anything that's unusual. But you just don't see things that are different and unusual. If anything, I feel it's on the incline over the last couple of years. Our beer culture has exploded, and people are drinking a greater variety of beer. And same for coffee.
Yes.
Our coffee culture is getting better and better, from what I see. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that's getting better. I don't think music's getting better. I don't think art or literature is improving. Television's getting worse.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, I can't... But perhaps it is subjective. Perhaps television is as crappy as it has been for a long time, but the older and certainly wiser and more knowledgeable about ourselves we get here in the FDR community, the more ridiculous television becomes. These days, when I happen across a snippet of daytime television or network news, it's sometimes hard for me to even tell whether it's truth or parody. In fact, I remember the first time I saw the O'Reilly Factor, this ridiculously aggressive, pusillanimous character on Fox, I thought he was a parody of talk shows. I didn't realize that this is actually his modus operandi. But and it's not just Fox. I mean, it's all the networks, and Australian news is just awful. The first thing that bothers me about listening to the news on Australian channels is the horrible English, because they make so many mistakes. It's as if the English isn't really their mother tongue. But beyond the ugliness of their language, they just report on things so glibly and superficially that if you have any knowledge of the area that they're reporting on, you realize that it can only be intentionally one-dimensional, because no one can be as stupid as that. But maybe it really was as dumb as that 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. I remember, do you ever listen to a comedian called Bill Hicks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Hicks, right? He's when he parodies or lampoons people who watch daytime television, he's like, "Hey, honey, what time is American Gladiator on?" And American Gladiator was an idiotic show. I mean, I've only seen snippets of it on YouTube, and I can't believe that people followed that. Mind you, when I was a kid, did you ever come across? Do you ever watch WWF, World Wrestling Federation?
No,
okay, but you know of it.
Yeah, everybody else around me knew about it.
Okay, well, and Big Brother.
Yeah, I had some idea of what went on with that.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I just don't watch daytime television, so I don't know. But is there anything that is as stupid as Big Brother these days on TV?
My impression was immediately after Big Brother, or soon after Big Brother, you had things like what's it called, Geordie Shore, Jersey Shore.
Oh yes, that kind of reality, but fake reality TV. Like it's reality in the guise of reality TV. There's just actors.
I wasn't even aware that it was just actors.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't know. Maybe there are people who are so thick-headed. It's hard to say.
I was living in Sydney for a few months, and my flatmate was watching that constantly. I had the impression it was real, but whether it's real or acted doesn't really change the fact that it is obnoxious. It's the lowest form of humor I could imagine. Just loud, obnoxious people behaving in obnoxious ways.
It always makes you feel like you're watching some kind of show of National Geographic where they've uncovered a primitive hominid. Yeah.
Well, I'm not being funny. This is an insult to primitive hominids. There is no creature I can think of that behaves in a more annoying way than these people or characters on Jersey Shore or Geordie Shore, whatever it was.
Or whatever it might be. Yeah. I remember I met a girl once, and she invited me over to her place, and she had, I think it was Big Brother. I can't remember, but it was something obnoxiously stupid playing on television. Now, I didn't want to launch right into being judgmental, because I know that she liked something else, but she had a legitimate reason to like it. Oh yes, she was into property, and she watched one of those TV shows where they take a house that's in disrepair and they repair it within 48 hours, or something like that. I don't know what it's called. But at any rate, I'm not interested in that show, and I think it's lame. But she liked it because that's part of what she works in. So I can understand that there's an abiding interest in that. So when I walked in and I saw Big Brother blaring on the television, whatever it might be, I asked her whether she had a particular interest. Maybe she was an amateur psychologist or an anthropologist or a biologist or
a zookeeper.
Yeah, or given the intelligence of the people on the show, biologist. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Microbiologist.
Yes, someone who studies plants. Who knows? But no, she said she just found it enjoyable. After a long day at work, she wanted to zone out a bit and have something stupid on TV. Well, that she achieved. I verily assure you that. But I must say that after finding this out about her, I was distinctly less interested in getting to know her. Not that she's terribly unpleasant in any other way, but that was something that was off-putting. And this takes me to a related tangent, and I think this is a topic that we'll probably return to many times in this podcast, and that is the difficulties of dating when you are a libertarian, when you're a free thinker, when you're into self-knowledge, when you're an FDR listener. So